I was standing at the door with my suitcase, ready to fly with my daughter on vacation, when my phone buzzed. The message cut through me like a knife. "You are not coming to Europe with us. My husband prefers this vacation to be a family vacation. Family vacation." Yet they took only his parents, the father-in-law and mother-in-law, and left me behind. After everything, after I had paid for their new house, this was how they treated me. My hands trembled, but my mind turned sharp. I canceled all the payments and sold that house without a second thought. You won't believe what happened when they finally came back home. I was folding my favorite travel blouse when my phone buzzed against the nightstand. The soft blue cotton slipped between my fingers as I smoothed out the wrinkles, imagining myself wearing it to dinner at that little bistro Lindsay had found near the Louvre. My suitcase lay open on the bed like a promise, half filled with carefully chosen clothes for our European adventure. The weather app showed bright, sunny skies in Paris, perfect for the walking tours I had printed and tucked neatly into my carry-on. I found myself softly humming an old Frank Sinatra tune while deciding between my worn brown leather shoes and the comfortable walking sneakers I trusted for long days. The tickets to Charles de Gaulle rested on my nightstand beside my passport, both documents crisp and ready. 6 hours until departure. My heart carried that familiar flutter of pre-travel excitement, laced with a hint of nervous energy. Then the phone buzzed again. Lindsay's name lit up the screen. I set the shirt down and picked up my phone, expecting last-minute flight details or a reminder about meeting at the airport. Instead, the words on the screen made my blood freeze. "You're not coming with us to Europe. My husband thinks it's better if this vacation stays family only." I read it once, then twice, then a third time, my thumb hovering over the screen as if waiting long enough might somehow change the message. The sweater I had been about to fold remained frozen in my hands as my mind struggled to process what I was seeing. Family only. The phrase echoed in my head like a broken record. I was her mother. I had planned this trip. I had bought the tickets, researched the restaurants, mapped out the itinerary during countless late-night hours. What did family only mean when you were talking to your own mother? I sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, the suitcase still gaping open beside me. My hands trembled slightly as I typed back the only response I could manage. Okay. The weight of disappointment pressed into my chest like a stone. I looked around my bedroom, seeing everything I had prepared for a trip that would never happen. The travel-sized toiletries lined up neatly on my dresser, the guidebooks with yellow sticky notes marking the places we had planned to visit. The new camera I had bought specifically for this vacation, still resting untouched in its box. I closed the suitcase with deliberate, careful movements, each gesture heavy with finality. Each click of the latches sounded final in the quiet room. Then I called the airline, listening to the hollow hold music while I waited to cancel my ticket. The customer service representative was sympathetic, but efficient. "I'm sorry to hear about your change of plans, Mrs. Cross," she said, and I wondered if she could hear the disappointment buried in my voice. Afterward, I sat in my living room, staring at the travel brochures scattered across my coffee table. The house felt emptier than usual, quieter in a way that made my ears ring. Outside, Mrs. Peterson's dog barked at something in the distance, the sound sharp and insistent against the heavy suburban stillness. I picked up one of the brochures, a glossy pamphlet about Roman architecture, and set it aside on the end table. The gesture felt small and meaningless, but it was all I could manage in that moment of realizing I had been carefully, deliberately left behind. Evening arrived, draped in the same quiet emptiness that had haunted my house all day. I drifted through the hours like a ghost, leaving my dinner dishes in the sink instead of washing them immediately as I always did. The packed suitcase still sat by my bedroom door, a constant reminder of plans that would never unfold. The television murmured from the living room, some evening news program I wasn't really watching. I kept checking my phone for no particular reason, scrolling through nothing. Restless energy made my fingers twitch against the screen. Maybe Facebook would offer some distraction from the hollow feeling in my chest. I scrolled past Mrs. Johnson's endless cat photos, recipe shares from my book club, and political posts I had no desire to read. The familiar blue glow of the screen was oddly comforting in the growing darkness of my living room. Then I saw it. Todd's parents standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, both of them grinning at the camera with that satisfied look of tourists who had captured the perfect photo opportunity. The caption read, "Beginning of the best family vacation ever." The timestamp showed it had been posted 2 hours ago. My thumb froze above the screen. Maybe they had taken a separate trip. Maybe this was just an old photo they decided to share. My heart began to beat faster as I clicked on the profile to see more photos. And there it was. Same location, same time. But this photo included 4 people. Todd's parents, Todd and Lindsay, all of them clustered together in front of a Parisian cafe, wine glasses gleaming on the table behind them. Lindsay's caption made my stomach drop. "So grateful for family time in the city of light." I counted the faces in the photo with trembling fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4. The word family seared into my mind like a brand. I set the phone down on the coffee table, its screen still glowing with their happy faces. I stood up and paced to the kitchen window, staring out at my neighbor's house where warm lights spilled from the windows. Families together for the evening. The betrayal struck me in waves, each one stronger than the last. I picked up the phone again, clinging to the hope that I had misunderstood somehow, that the photos might tell a different story. But the photos were still there, the timestamps still fresh, their smiles still bright and carefree. The 4 of them together in the city I had dreamed of visiting, enjoying the vacation I had planned, following the itinerary I had researched. I walked back to the kitchen window and saw my own reflection staring back at me, ghostly, hollow-eyed. Behind the ghostly image of my face, their photo still glowed on the phone screen. 4 of them together, bright and alive, while I stood alone in my kitchen, staring at the overlap of their joy and my emptiness. Morning crept in through the curtains, pale and gray. I hadn't slept, my body was exhausted, but my mind kept replaying those photos. I knew I couldn't let it rest. I needed to hear her voice, to demand an answer. With trembling hands, I dialed her number. The international ring echoed, distant and expensive. At last, she answered, her voice light, distracted by the sounds of Paris behind her. "I need to understand something," I said, skipping all greetings. "I saw the photos," I told her. "Todd's parents are there with you." There was a long pause before her tone shifted, suddenly sharp. "Mom, we can explain." "Explain? You said this trip was family only. What am I then?" Her voice cooled, distant. "Mom, Todd said you can be overwhelming." He didn't want his vacation ruined. The word overwhelming struck like a slap. Ruined? I was the one who bought the tickets, who planned every detail. "And Todd's parents?" I pressed. "They paid their own way," she snapped back. "They don't expect us to take care of them constantly." That word again. Constantly. It hung in the air like an accusation, as if my sacrifices were nothing but a burden. Todd's laughter drifted in the background, careless, mocking. Then Lindsay's voice hardened. "Honestly, Mom, Todd is right. You're too needy." The phone grew heavy in my hand. That word, needy, echoed like a curse I could not shake off. I lowered the phone and walked into my study. The walls were lined with photos, me holding Lindsay as a baby, teaching her to ride a bike, walking her down the aisle on her wedding day. Pride had once filled those moments. Now my fists clenched as I stared at them, realizing how completely I had misunderstood what love meant to her. I reached out and straightened one crooked frame, my fingers steady but cold. That small act felt heavier than it should, as if I wasn't just fixing a photo, but adjusting the truth I had ignored for years. Each picture now looked different. The wedding I had paid for, the graduation I had funded, the house I had signed for. What I once thought was love was nothing more than usefulness. 6:06. but they were still there. Timestamps still fresh, their smiles still bright and carefree. The four of them together in the city I'd dreamed of visiting, spending the vacation I'd planned, using the itinerary I'd researched. I walked back to the kitchen window and saw my own reflection staring back at me, ghostly and hollow-eyed. It wasn't only the money. Memories rose up, plans I had buried, the fishing trip I canceled to babysit, the dinner invitation I declined because Lindsay needed help moving, my own travel dreams shelved year after year so theirs could come true. I saw it now, every sacrifice stitched together into a net that trapped only me. Sunday dinners where Todd barely spoke to me. Holidays where conversations flowed around me as if I weren't even there. The subtle ways they made me feel like an outsider, yet never refused the money I brought to the table. Piece by piece, the pattern became undeniable. My hands trembled as I turned the photos face down, one by one. I couldn't bear to look at them any longer. The word needy kept echoing in my head, louder each time until it drowned out every memory. In that moment, I finally understood the difference between being loved and simply being used. In the mirror above my desk, I no longer saw the patient mother I had been for decades. Instead, a harder woman stared back, eyes colder, jaw set. I realized I had mistaken generosity for love and trust for loyalty. What reflected back was someone who had endured too much and was finally ready to stop. I opened my laptop, the glow of the screen spilling across my desk. My cursor hovered over the banking dashboard, right above the section that listed authorized users, Lindsay's name staring back at me. One click and everything could change. My finger trembled, but I closed the laptop instead. Some battles required more than impulse, some required patience. The sharp ping of my banking app broke the silence. At first, I thought it was another useless promotion, but curiosity made me check. My breath caught as the screen lit up. Transaction approved, Paris, France. A restaurant bill, time-stamped only hours ago. They were dining, laughing, spending on my card. I scrolled through the recent transactions, each line cutting deeper. Hotel charges, boutique shopping, tourist attractions, all of it on my account. The irony stung, excluded from their so-called family trip, yet funding every glass of wine, every souvenir. Another ping, boutique chic, 85 €. She was shopping while I sat in silence, piecing together years of betrayal. That was enough. I opened the settings, my finger hovering only a moment before pressing Remove Authorized User. Lindsay's name vanished from the screen. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of control return to me. The next morning, the phone rang with an international number I knew too well. I let it buzz twice before answering. Lindsay's voice came sharp, almost shrill. "Mom, what did you do to the card?" It was declined, in front of Todd's parents. The waiter had to come back 3 times. It was humiliating. I took a calm sip of my coffee. "That must have been embarrassing," I said evenly. Her tone hardened, dripping with anger. "You don't understand, Mom. When we get back, Todd and I are looking into care facilities. You're getting older, and clearly you can't handle your finances. We'll sell your house to pay for it." For a moment, the cruelty stole my breath. They weren't just cutting me off from their lives, they were planning to lock me away. "Mom, are you listening?" Lindsay pushed, her voice sharp. "I heard every word," I replied, steady. "Good. Then fix it. Restore my card access." "No." A stunned pause. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean exactly that," I said, my tone calm but unyielding. "Enjoy the rest of your family vacation." I set the phone down, face first on the table, and let the silence settle. My gaze drifted toward the filing cabinet. Inside was more than paper. It was power. The deed to my home, and more importantly, the deed to their house, still in my name. They had promised to transfer it someday. Someday never came. Now that piece of paper was mine to use. I pulled the deed from the cabinet and laid it flat on my desk like a battle plan. My fingers found an old business card. Marcus Chen, the realtor who had helped me years ago. Reliable. Discreet. Within the hour, I was driving across town, the deed in my bag, determination steady in my chest. Marcus looked up from his desk as I entered, surprise softening into a warm smile. Vivian Cross. It's been years. How have you been? I need to sell a property, I said without hesitation. His brow lifted. The one you bought for Lindsay? Yes, quickly. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. He didn't ask why. Professionals like him knew when not to press. Marcus tapped on his keyboard, pulling up recent sales in the neighborhood. The market is strong right now. A house like that could fetch 180, maybe 190. I remembered paying 130 not long ago. The number filled me with a grim sort of satisfaction. How soon can it be listed? I asked. As soon as tomorrow, if you'd like, he replied. His tone was calm, professional, but I could sense he understood the urgency in my voice. Marcus slid the listing forms across the desk, inspection schedules, commission agreements, signatures marked with neat X's. I signed each page without hesitation, my pen steady. When the final line was done, I felt lighter, as if I had signed away more than a house. I had signed away years of being taken for granted. Marcus assured me his team would handle the rest. Photos, staging, marketing, offers could come within days. We shook hands firmly before I left. Stepping out into the daylight, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Relief. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting. I was taking control. Driving back through familiar streets, I noticed details I had long ignored. The red brick church on the corner, the flower shop with fresh blooms in the window. Classical music filled the car, and for once, it didn't sound like background noise. It sounded like freedom. At a red light, I watched a young family crossing the street, the father carrying a toddler, the mother pushing a stroller. For a moment, I was taken back to when Lindsay was that small, when everything between us was simple. Before money, before expectations, before the word needy carved its place between mother and daughter. Pulling into my driveway, I paused for a moment, staring at the old mailbox with Cross painted in faded letters. That name had been dismissed, overlooked, even taken advantage of. But now, seeing it there, I felt its weight return. It was mine, and it meant something again. Inside, I opened my laptop to find a new email waiting. Property listed successfully. The words glowed on the screen, final and undeniable. I leaned back in my chair, a thin smile tugging at my lips. For once, the leverage was mine. I searched for moving services, scrolling past the big companies until I found a small, family-owned business with honest reviews. Dave's Honest Moving. I dialed the number, and a steady voice answered, "This is Dave." "I need a house cleared," I said. "Tomorrow morning, if possible." "A full house?" Dave asked. "We'll need a storage unit." Within minutes, he had me on a 3-way call with Janet from Secure Storage. "For that much furniture, you'll want a 10 by 20 unit," Janet explained. "I'll take it," I replied. My voice was firm, decisive. By the end of the call, everything was arranged. Truck, movers, storage. Tomorrow at 8. After the calls, I cooked myself a simple dinner, eating with an appetite I hadn't felt in days. I laid out old jeans and boots for the morning, the clothes I once wore when I built a life from nothing. Setting my alarm for 6:30, I felt something stir inside me. Purpose. At 7:45 the next morning, I arrived at the Maple Street house. The moving truck was already there, its engine rumbling in the cool air. Dave climbed out of the cab, sturdy and straightforward, with 2 younger men unloading equipment behind him. "Mrs. Cross?" he asked, extending a work-worn hand. "Yes," I answered, unlocking the front door. The house greeted us with silence. We walked room by room. Dave made quick notes, estimating time and effort. 3, maybe 4 hours, he said. The crew began boxing items with practiced efficiency. I joined in despite his protest. "I'm not that fragile," I told him. Carrying a box labeled Lindsay's books, I felt a strange satisfaction watching their belongings leave the place. In their closet, I found a wedding album. I flipped through the glossy pages, my stomach tightening. Todd's family filled every frame, their smiles wide and proud. My own face appeared only a handful of times, small, pushed to the edges. I closed the album firmly and handed it to the movers without a word. Room by room, their luxuries resurfaced. Designer handbags, electronics, the leather dining set I had bought for their first anniversary. My back ached as I lifted box after box, but I pushed on. Each item was a reminder, not of generosity, but of how blind I had been. In a small room meant to be a nursery, I saw a crib and baby furniture waiting for a future that never came. For a moment, doubt pricked at me. Was I being too harsh? Then I opened a drawer and found Todd's credit card statements, filled with luxury purchases made while they pleaded poverty. The doubt vanished instantly. Dave noticed me pause, the papers trembling slightly in my hand. "You okay, Mrs. Cross?" he asked gently. "Just memories," I answered, forcing my voice steady. Then I nodded for them to keep going. By late morning, the rooms stood bare, sunlight streaming through empty windows. Every echo in the house sounded final. I walked through one last time, then closed the door and turned the key. The lock clicked, sealing more than just a house. It sealed years of misplaced devotion. At the storage facility, I watched as every box and piece of furniture disappeared into Unit 47B, their life packed and stacked behind a metal door. I paid Dave in cash, adding a tip he didn't expect. "Hope everything works out for you, Mrs. Cross," he said kindly. I gave a small nod. Words felt unnecessary. Back home, my phone buzzed with notifications. Lindsay had posted on Facebook, painting herself as the victim. "Some people have no respect for family privacy," she wrote. Comments piled up quickly. Friends asking questions, offering sympathy. I didn't reply. Let her spin her story. The truth was already moving in silence. That afternoon, Marcus called with a spark in his voice. "Vivian, we already have a serious buyer, a young couple, cash offer, higher than expected." "How high?" I asked. 185. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the satisfaction wash over me. The house that once chained me to obligation was now my victory. "They want to close immediately," Marcus continued. "They're tired of renting a corporate apartment and are eager to move in this weekend." I checked the calendar. It was Thursday. By Saturday, the house could already belong to someone else. "Do it," I said. My voice carried no hesitation. The next morning, I sat at the title office, signing page after page with calm precision. The buyers, Michael and Sarah, a couple in their early 30s, shook my hand warmly. Their eyes carried the excitement of a new beginning. Watching them, I remembered when I, too, once believed in fresh starts. A notification buzzed on my phone. Funds transferred. The sale was final. I had turned what was once a symbol of obligation into a profit, into freedom. For the first time in years, the weight pressing on my chest began to lift. On Saturday, I drove past the Maple Street house one last time. A U-Haul truck filled the driveway, Michael and Sarah directing movers with radiant energy. In the yard, a baby crib was carried inside, followed by laughter. The house, once heavy with disappointment, was breathing again. A taxi pulled up just as the movers carried the last box inside. Lindsay stepped out first, travel-worn but suddenly alert. Todd followed, paying the driver, his face shifting from confusion to alarm as he saw strangers in what he believed was his driveway. "Excuse me?" he called out to Sarah. "What are you doing in our house?" Michael appeared in the doorway, deed in hand. "Your house? There must be a mistake. We closed yesterday." I stepped forward from across the street, envelope in my hand. Lindsay's eyes found me. Confusion, then fury. "Mom, what is going on?" Why are strangers in our house? It was never yours, I said calmly. The deed was always in my name, and I sold it. You can't do this! Lindsay's voice rose to a shriek. This is theft! Todd shouted, his face red with rage. Without flinching, I handed them the envelope. Todd ripped it open, inside a slip of paper with an address. Storage Unit 47B, Brady Street, he read aloud. Our things. You put our life in storage? Lindsay's voice cracked. I preserved everything carefully, I replied. The first month's rent is already paid. Todd stepped closer, trying to tower over me. We'll contest this. We'll sue you. With what money? I asked evenly. Your credit cards already screamed decline in Paris. His face twisted, but I didn't flinch. The sale is legal. The property was mine to sell. End of story. Lindsay's voice shifted, no longer furious but pleading, the same tone she had used since childhood when she wanted something. How could you do this to your own daughter? I held her gaze, my voice low but sharp. How could you do what you did to your own mother? Sarah's worried voice broke the tension. Maybe we should call the police. I turned to her gently. There's no need. This is your home now. Please, go inside. She hesitated, then nodded and stepped back with Michael, leaving me face to face with Lindsay and Todd. Their luggage still sat on the curb, looking out of place, like they were strangers in a life that no longer belonged to them. Where are we supposed to live now? Lindsay's voice cracked, teetering between rage and despair. Everything you own is safe, I replied, handing over the slip of paper. Unit 47B, Brady Street, first month already paid. Todd crumpled the paper in his fist, his face twisted. This is insane. No, I said calmly. This is fair. Todd stepped closer, his voice rising. We'll fight you in court. You can't just erase us like this. I didn't flinch. The sale is legal. The house was mine to sell. Lindsay's eyes blazed with fury. You'll regret this, Mom. I turned, my footsteps steady on the pavement. No, I said over my shoulder. You will. I walked back to my car, each step deliberate, my heels striking the pavement like a gavel. Behind me, Lindsay and Todd stood frozen on the sidewalk, their luggage at their feet, faces twisted with disbelief. They looked less like family and more like tourists who had lost their way. I started the engine, classical music rising once more. For me, it was over. Weeks later, a process server arrived at my door with a thick envelope. Lindsay and Todd had filed a lawsuit. I signed the papers calmly, almost expecting them. By afternoon, the court's decision came. Case dismissed. The judge ruled the property was legally mine to sell. No grounds for appeal. Their debt now included attorney fees. Word spread quickly through town. At the coffee shop, I overheard whispers. That son-in-law always seemed entitled. Another voice added, Vivian worked her whole life. She deserved better. There were a few murmurs of disapproval. Family should stay together. But I let them roll off me. For once, the town's judgment didn't weigh me down. One afternoon, I stopped by the local pet store. A golden retriever named Max was waiting, his family moving overseas. He's 3 years old, the clerk said. Gentle, loyal, loves car rides. I knelt down, and Max pressed his head into my hand as if he had been waiting only for me. In that moment, neither of us was alone anymore. With Max settled at my feet, I started looking at travel trailers. Articles spoke of freedom, of roads unplanned. At the dealership, I chose a modest RV, enough for one woman and her dog. Max hopped onto the passenger seat as if claiming it. I signed the papers without hesitation. A new chapter had begun. The morning we left, my house was locked, mail on hold, neighbors told to keep watch. I loaded the RV with camping gear, Max's food, and one photo album, Lindsay as a child before things broke between us. Driving through town, I passed the Maple Street house. Laughter of children rang from the yard. It belonged to Joy again. The highway stretched wide before us, a sign reading Colorado, 500 miles. Max leaned out the window, ears flapping in the wind, while my hands gripped the wheel steady and sure. For the first time in years, the road was mine, open, endless, waiting. That evening, we stopped at a mountain overlook. The sky blazed with orange and violet as the sun sank behind the peaks. I unfolded a chair, Max curled at my feet, his breathing steady. For the first time in decades, I wasn't waiting for anyone's approval. I was exactly where I belonged. Family isn't measured by blood or by the debts you pay for others. True family stands with you, not just when your wallet is open, but when your heart is heavy. They thought my age made me weak, that years of sacrifice meant I would never resist. They were wrong. When a woman has nothing left to lose, she becomes unstoppable.